The Crescent of Embrace crashed on the scene when an open design competition was held to honor the heroes of Flight 93. The enemy entered, and they won. There was public outrage about the Crescent configuration, and so a redesign was planned, but once that was unveiled, we were left scratching our heads because every particle of the original design remains in the redesign. Construction of this abomination will soon begin, although objections to the symbolism in it continue to grow. The temporary memorial represented more of what American people were thinking. It had American symbolism in it, but the memorial design is Islamic, and it's an Islamic flag planted on the graves of our heroes. Not only that, the Flight 93 memorial is a memorial mosque to the hijackers, kind of like a giant Islamic prayer rug. It points to Mecca. It has a giant mihrab, like every mosque, showing the way to face Mecca for prayers. There were supposed to be 40 memorial groves of trees. That's what was advertised. But when you count them, there's only 38. It's 19 nested crescents of trees behind the giant mihrab that point to the terrorists' intended target, Washington, D.C. 19 terrorists, 19 nested crescents pointing to their intended target. They are also red maples, which will turn flaming red on or about the 9/11 date. The consistent theme in the design is the crescent structure represents the Islamic heavens, so our heroes are never represented in it. When facing into the giant mihrab crescent, you are facing Mecca. The Tower of Voices serves as a minaret structure, and a minaret is where they literally call people for prayer. So it's really interesting that it also doubles as an Islamic sundial. There are complicated calculations necessary to accomplish this because the times for prayer are called out by shadow length, which vary throughout the year. The other sickening thing about this structure is it looks like a box cutter. And inside the box cutter are wind chimes that represent our people. It has an extruded crescent at the top, like a lot of Islamic buildings. Around the Islamic sundial, there are 19 more nested crescents of trees, this time white pines. And it has 19 nested crescents and then 4 single trees that represent the 4 terrorists. You can see them circled here. It gives them special recognition. There are 44 translucent blocks along the flight path, outnumbering the number of passengers and crew by the number of terrorists. One of these blocks dedicates the site at the entryway. The mission statement is inscribed on that one. The other 3 dedicate the date to the terrorists. Whether or not the translucent blocks have their name on them, the point is the translucent blocks represent every single person that died, including the terrorists. At every point where the terrorists are referenced, they are placed in the Islamic heavens, while the heroes of the flight are cast into eternal hell. On the flight path, for example, they fall outside the stars on the Islamic flag. That's how they keep their mosque clear of the dirty kafirim. As you may or may not know, unbelievers are not allowed in Mecca, and they need to keep it that way in Flight 93 Memorial Mosque, since it would be the biggest mosque in North America by a factor of 100. And did you know a lot of mosques are memorials with tombs in them? In the Tower of Voices, our people are strung up like fish on a line, represented inside by wind chimes, which will twist and clang in the wind and rain, and it casts them out of the Islamic heavens at the same time. In some ways, this is an ingenious design, but how it got past the family members, I have no idea. But it didn't get past all of them. Tom Burnett Sr. doesn't want Tom Burnett Jr.'s name on the memorial, And locally, the people in Somerset, Pennsylvania are getting more outraged that the objections are being ignored by the Park Service. That's Tom Burnett Jr. Two congressmen, Tom Tancredo and Ramstad, object to the Islamic symbolism in the design. Tancredo has called for the design to be scrapped. There's also a petition that you can sign calling for a congressional investigation. Congress was pretty smart when they wrote the public law about this memorial. They excluded the terrorists from the definition of passengers and crew, and they're not supposed to be honored. So this thing violates a couple of things. And one of the amazing parts is that it violates one of the physical requirements. They want to fill the wetlands and change the geography of the land. And environmental laws would make that illegal if this were not on Park Service land and a government structure. Instead of following the rim of the bowl, the crescent starts on the ridgeline above the crash site and circles around well below it, passing across the middle of the wetland that sits about 70 vertical feet below the crash site. Not only is the crash site not a bowl, but the crescent actually doesn't fit the natural landform at all. Of all the designs entered in the competition, Paul Murdoch's Crescent of Embrace is the only one that fails to meet the memorial project's stated physical requirement that design entries should respect the rural landscape. Most remarkable is Patrick White, Vice President of Families in Flight 93, because in a private conversation at the Memorial Project's July 2007 meeting, White told someone that an expensive drainage system had been developed for the Crescent design, and that no other design would work on the site because this elaborate drainage system would only work with the Crescent design. The Crescent design is the only design out of all thousands submitted that needs to have a drainage system. Every other design left the wetland untouched, as the memorial project had asked. Yet these people all really seem to mean it when they insist that this is the only design that fits the land. The excuses they're making for this thing are ridiculous. For example, it can't be a mihrab because there's never been a mihrab that big before. One paper said they dismissed the Mecca orientation because the earth is round and you can face any direction to face Mecca. Yet, look at Qibla, Qibla. Billions of Muslims take the time to figure the direction to Mecca every day. And every mosque has a Mecca direction indicator, Qibla or mihrab. Can anyone say Al-Taqiyya? Check this out at the blog Error Theory, or download Alec Rawls' great book Crescent of Betrayal at crescentofbetrayal.com. It's free. Get involved and let's stop this thing.